The following is a presentation of RMG Sports, award-winning championship television.
Coach Vasilko, thanks for coming down all the way from Richland. We're getting these guys that are traveling all the way down Route 219, coming down here to Somerset. We appreciate you taking the time.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Let's, as I like to do, a lot of times the fans out there may not know that much about you personally. They know your career, they see what you're doing with hockey and with sports, but I'd like to go back and let's talk about your playing career, your career as a player. You went to school at Richland, and then you started working with traveling teams. Let's talk about your time with the traveling teams and the junior hockey. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Played travel growing up. I mean, since I started skating about 7 years old, played through Johnstown pretty much till I was aged out, midgets, 18. Went to play juniors in Indiana. Really enjoyed playing out there. Like, that was probably my favorite time playing hockey. I love, and the coach, Ron Helen, that's really who inspired me. He's one of my influences as far as getting into coaching. Love playing for that guy and just had a blast doing it, and still making my ways around the adult league circuit too, so now can't quite give it up.
When you mention Indiana, that's not Indiana, Pennsylvania, is it? It's
Indiana, Pennsylvania. There's a little junior C team called the Indiana Thunder. It was there for a couple years and fortunate enough there to play for 2 and made nationals 2 years and playoff team, had some success there, and like I said, had a blast doing it too.
One thing about hockey is it's different than the other sports, well, in many ways, but let's just talk about the progression of a player. Your traditional sports, let's say, your traditional path is you start with midgets or juniors, you're in elementary school, move to the JV and junior high, into high school and you play, move to college and you play, and then into maybe the pros or something like that. Hockey, it's kind of splintered. It kind of goes all over the place. You start at the pee-wee level, I guess, very young, move your way up into the midgets, and then now high school hockey is taken over. Is that good or is that bad for the sport? I mean, it just seems like people can't get their head around like junior C, junior B, junior A, junior this, junior that. They don't understand it because when they're dealing with basketball and football, it's JV, varsity,
right.
College.
I mean, with hockey, it's odd coming up through the ranks because one transition you see is you'll see players when they start out really young, you're thinking this kid's the next thing, and as soon as you throw hitting into the mix, that kid might phase out. And at the same token, I have guys that I've played with now that in high school, maybe they weren't the strongest player, but they've gotten better even going to college or going to juniors after or whatnot playing there. They get better. But as far as like the hockey, the biggest thing in this area that I think is hurting is there's just so many teams. Where this area isn't a hockey hotbed like you're getting in Pittsburgh and some of the bigger areas where it can't facilitate this many teams. So you're having like a couple watered down versions of teams. Now, there are strong programs in the area, but you have to have like all the moons aligned to have this group play together and for it to have a successful team. And until everyone wants to get on the same page and kind of, okay, this is going to be the travel team. You're not going to keep kids from going to Altoona, from going to Pittsburgh, to these surrounding areas to play, because what Altoona's doing is incredible with their travel program. I mean, national championships, state championships every year. It's tough to draw kids from that. And when you water down or already watered down talent, it makes it, the teams are hit or miss in this area. Like, there are some talented kids in this area, but them playing on 9 different teams really dilutes the talent pool.
Does it hurt high school hockey? I mean, everybody wants to see, one of the other things about hockey is it's not like you say it's the Altoona team, but it's not like the Altoona this. You have different names like I know the Mid-State Mustangs, and you have different teams all around. They're not as recognizable as the Forest Hills Rangers or the Richland Rams, where people might be able to understand that a little bit better. Because of all this and the talent being kind of spread out, does that hurt the high school programs?
I think the only really effect that we've seen on our end for high school programs is you're having practices sometimes overlap, things like that. You come into conflicts. But other than that, I mean, I've had a couple kids that I've coached, in years past, come back to me. You know what? I love playing travel. We had good teams, but I really miss playing high school because in high school you get the atmosphere, you get the fans, you get the school sport. You're playing with the kids you grew up with for the most part. Like, you don't get that in travel hockey, where that's where I think high school stays strong, is the kids enjoy playing in front of a crowd, where, travel, you're playing in front of mom and dad, or maybe a couple kids hanging around after the last game, where in high school, you're actually playing in front of pretty decent sized crowds.
Let's move from the travel teams to the high school teams, and specifically your career as a coach. And you started under the Somerset program as an assistant, and then you took over in Richland in 2009. What was your biggest challenge, or what was the biggest challenge you faced personally and professionally as a coach, moving from a player, a short time as an assistant, and then taking over a program like Richland?
I mean, transitioning from the player to the coach was probably the biggest jump, simply because things are way different from when I played. Like, as far as, what you can do, what you can't do, as far as like, hey, here's how you have to handle punishing kids. Like, not that that's what you're looking for right off the bat.
Well,
but
discipline's that's part of the game.
Right, and I spent a lot of my first year at the school. Hey, we're having problems here, and we knew going in, the school had gone into a history of a lot of fighting, a lot of suspensions in the games, and that was kind of what our first thing was. Like, we don't want you to win. We don't care if you win. We just want you to iron this out first. And I don't think we've had a, knock on wood, a fighting suspension since we've started. And it comes with winning too. Like, we've had some talented groups coming through, but that was the biggest culture change for me anyway, was going from the hitting, I don't want to say goon mentality, to the more playing the sport the way it's supposed to be played.
2013, is that 4 seasons after you started? You're in the Laurel Mountain Hockey League championship game, coming in as the 4 seed, playing the 2 seed Greater Johnstown Trojans. We were there.
Yeah,
we were there. It was one of the games we covered. Huge win, overtime win. It's one of the games we use when people say, "What are you doing with hockey?" Watch this game, because it was an incredible game. That was your first championship. Now, it's great to win any game, but as a coach, it was your first championship. Had to be fantastic for you.
It's one I'll always remember. I mean, it was so much fun. Just the atmosphere of the game. I mean, you saw how big the student section was. Enormous. I mean, we had such a turnout, fans, students, the kids. Kids were all into it, and we had been in the Final Four. We've been in the finals. Like, we had that. We kept getting that taste. Where to finally break through in overtime fashion after winning an overtime game in the semifinals prior to. I mean, those are 2 games I'll remember for the rest of my life. Like, no matter where this job, like how long I continue to do this, that's going to be 2 games that I'll remember forever. For sure.
Probably one of the next, or the next game you would remember would be in 2015.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the playoffs this past year. Well, it's still 2015 now, but in hockey, in Hockeyville, or in Hockey Land and Hockey Time, it's last season. Back into the championship game, into the playoffs as the 4 seed once again. Does being the 4 seed put more fuel in the tank of these players? Or are they like, we're considered to be the 4 seed, not really expected to win? You think about you're the bottom seed in a 4 seed, semifinal run. Is there a little bit more fuel in the tank?
I got to say, going into last year's playoffs, like in the 2013 championship, always as a coach, you're always thinking, okay, what if this happens? Who do we have to run into? Going into last year's playoff, there was no doubt in my mind what the result was going to be. Not to sound overconfident, but just the kids never allowed me to think like that. Like, that group we had of seniors is something that, that comes along maybe once in a career. Like, that crew of guys we had. I mean, we graduated 12 kids the year prior, and to lose over half a team and still come back and be competitive, and if not even, stronger as a team, like this group, we had some issues at the beginning of the year, like getting guys healthy, getting guys, of course, together sports and different things like that. But once it all came together, like, I knew once you get this group on the ice, there's not going to be a team that's going to be able to stop it. And those kids were gamers. Like, you worry about some of the times the kids come to the rink, are they ready? Are they in the right mindset? Like, when they walked through the doors, it was business for them. Like, they were ready, and everyone followed that group. Like, they knew what they had to do. Everyone knew their role, and it really worked out for us well last year.
You just answered like 8 of my next 9 questions, but we're gonna continue on. Let's focus on, since this was the playoffs last year, and it's the first time we've been able to have you in front of the camera with this. Let's talk about the playoffs. Game 1, you guys, and let me tell you, everybody was predicting a Blair County championship. Hollidaysburg, Altoona's first year in there, they were the 1 and 2 seed. Now, you had to take on the number 2 seed Hollidaysburg team. You beat them soundly. I mean, Zach Wessner, hat trick, fantastic game. One of their players, Brandon Ritchie, what kind of strategy did you have, or can you remember what kind of strategy you had? Outstanding young player.
I mean, coming into the last game, we did a pretty good job of keeping him in check, and a lot of that stemmed from having Andy Murtha back there on defense. He was the guy. You tapped him on the you tapped him on the back. Hey, go take out not take out like injure them, but take out their best player. Make sure if they're going to beat us, it's going to be with someone other than Brandon. And we still maintain that philosophy with some teams, but that game he has a chance to take over any game you play. Like, you give that kid space, he's going to score goals, and that's against any team, any defenseman, any goalie, whatever it may be. But when they took a penalty at the end of the game, that really opened the floodgates for us, because once he was off the ice, I mean, that was what their team was built around. When he was on his game, they could beat anybody in the league. But you take him away from that team, it's completely different. And we really fed off that penalty. He took the penalty, and you just saw the change in our bench, the change in our play. They stepped it up to another level than what we were already playing. Let
me step out of this and let me ask you something that's related to Hollidaysburg, but you'll see in a second. Quinn Hunter, young lady playing for Hollidaysburg. Hockey's unique in that you have both boys and girls out on the ice. You see the long hair coming up. You see a ponytail coming up from behind the helmet.
Yeah.
How do you as a coach, and how is the game handled differently when you have both boys and girls playing a contact sport? Because clearly you can't go out there and say, hey, you got to be lighter on some of them, because if you're lighter on them, well, they're liable to go right around you and put the puck in the back of the net. So how do you as a coach kind of plan around having girls on the ice with boys in a contact sport?
One of our best moments last year in the playoffs was in the Hollidaysburg game, and we got into that where I think they had 3 or 4 girls on their team where they were going to get the puck in the corner and we weren't hitting them. And we have 2 girls on our team as well. Well, our girl that's a forward, Gabby, she said to the one line came off the ice, I'm talking yelled at them. If they didn't want hit, they wouldn't be out here. Don't treat them any different. And she'd tell you the same thing. Like, she'll take a hit, she'll give a hit, and she'll run her mouth and she'll go to the dirty areas just as much as anyone else. So really, the difference isn't it's not as extreme as you'd think it would be. I mean, at least not in the experience that I've had with the girls that we've had. I mean, they're just as tough and they're just as strong-headed as the boys are, if you could believe that. But yeah, that was one of the funnier moments on the bench, and the team responded just like that, and they went out like they were hitting. And it changed a lot of the outcome of that game.
Let's hop back into last year's playoffs now. I just brought that up because we were watching highlights, and Quinn Hunter came across, and I said I wanted to ask about having girls on the team. There's a sweater hanging here behind me, your sweater, because you're the league champion.
Okay.
Took on Altoona, first year in the league, big school, the #1 seed. What did you tell your players to get them? I mean, you answered this before, but this is I think a little bit different. Altoona kind of steamrolled into the league. They steamrolled the league that year. #1 seed, I believe they only had one loss going into this game. You're going in the championship. What do you tell your players that they're going up against #1 seed like Altoona?
I mean, we played them. We were their loss during the season. We played them pretty well in the regular season. The second time we played them through, and we had a group, like I said, that's been together. Like, you got Westerner, Bosch, and Petula, Murtha. Like, that group, I mean, they haven't just started in 9th grade. They've been playing together forever, like since they started strapping on their skates. And that's where you kind of tell them, hey, this is what you guys work for. Like, you're a group. You've been a group the whole way through. Finish it now. This is your ending now. Finish it as a group. Go out on top. Only team from Richland to win 2 championships, and they fed off that. Like, I mean, I don't have to tell anyone how good Bryce played in those games, but you don't allow a kid like Bryce to play that good without Jeremy giving him passes and Zach, and they were the ultimate group together. Like, I've never seen 3 kids mesh like that as well as they played together.
You mentioned Bryce Boston, hat trick in a championship, and one of spoiler alert here, everybody, when we do our top plays of 2015. We call it Disney on Ice, the Disney on Ice goal, where he actually left the ice surface to get that goal. I mean, it was an incredible goal. We just happened to have every camera we had on that to get every reverse angle we could. On the bench, what was it like on the bench when you saw him go airborne and get that thing in?
I mean, I almost fell off the bench. Like, I actually had to catch myself on the bench, because I knew once he got past that defender, he was in the clear. And both years, 2 times in the championships, 3 goals each year. I mean, you can't teach that kind of stuff. You can't teach that attitude coming into a game where you have this kid who's just going to take over a game from an offensive standpoint. In a contact sport, it's always challenging, especially with
youngsters, with teenagers, to keep everybody focused. We always talk about focus. Towards the end of the game, catcher Cumming, the goaltender for Altoona, injured. Last minute, I don't know what it was, just desperation, came out and just charged Bryce as he came across the line. How do you keep everybody in check as a coach to keep things from getting out of hand? And it's a contact sport. Hockey, everybody knows, can get really rough, and it could have got a lot rougher after something like that. What'd you say to the players when that happened?
I mean, I've played goalie my whole life growing up. I've maybe done that play once or twice, but that's when you can start to see, okay, what we're doing is getting to them now. Like, they're resorting to different tactics to try and get us off our game, and that just keep plugging away, keep doing what we're doing, and good things are going to happen. And that's where we're at that point. Like, no matter what we did worked for us that year, at least from an offensive standpoint. And we were able, like in practices, when you have offensive talent like that, you don't have to waste time in practice going over offensive plays and things like that. That's where we're different this year, where we could spend more time on defense, on goalie, on defensive zone structure. Where if we take the other team, like you play a Brandon Ritchie, we could spend a whole practice trying to game plan for a player like that instead of going over offensive stuff, because you could say, hey, our top two lines, just go out and do your thing. Be creative, go get your goals, and they did that.
Let's talk about the Ram Nation. When we cover these games, we always try to get the fans to come out, especially the student body to come out. Yeah, I'm not playing favorites here, but it's a fact. Look at the video. Richland always shows up. How much is that it's seen by the players, and how much do they appreciate that?
They love it. I mean, the kids, that's all they keep before they show up for a big game. Hey, we got so many kids, or these kids are coming. The basketball team's coming in, and it's not just hockey at Richland. It's all the sports. Like, the kids really do a good job of getting out and getting to the different sporting events and supporting their classmates, their friends, their neighbors, their buddies, and it's really great to see. Like, it makes the game so much more fun, so much more intense when you have that student body. And it, as minuscule as it sounds, it really does affect the players, because they try and they raise their game to, for lack of a better, impress their friends.
Let's move to 2016, not where you want to be right now. How badly, you mentioned it a little bit before, how badly do you miss your seniors? How badly do you miss the Bostons and the Westerners on the team? And how are your underclassmen stepping up?
Like I said, I mean, you're never going to replace a class like that. It's not possible. But we're more transitioning this year to being like the lunch pail team, where we're going to have to go out and outwork every team we've played. And we've had flashes, and it's getting better. Like, we replaced 8 seniors and a goalie. So you look at the last 2 years, over a team has been turnover. Our goalie moved, the class we've talked about, defenseman. Where we have a goalie this year, he's never played ice hockey before. Last 2 games, he's given up 3 goals combined, and went toe-to-toe with probably the best goalie in our league this year, Trent out in Bishop Guilfoyle. It's getting there. Like, to say that we're not where we want to be in the year record-wise is correct, but where we want to be development-wise is probably ahead of schedule, because we've played the bulk of our hard schedule already. Like, we've played Central Cambria twice, we played State College, we played Altoona. Like, those are probably going to be the top 3 teams, and Johnstown, like, is going to be in there in some order. Played them already. We're getting into the teams we're going to be in competition with for a playoff spot. And last night we had a nice win against Conemaugh Valley, and we're now seeing the development of our next group of guys that carry the mail offensively. Luke Alexo, Adam Batula. Like, Luke had 4 goals last night, Adam had 1, and they're starting to really hit their stride offensively. And once that part comes together, put it this way, the team you're going to see in February and the team that we saw in September and October is going to be 2 different teams.
We've called their names before in our coverage. I know we've called their names before, so I'm sure things will continue to improve for you. Let's hop out of Richland Rams hockey again, and let's talk about the Laurel Mountain Hockey League. Kind of a unique situation, and it's a league that's growing. We've seen Hollidaysburg join, we've seen Altoona join, and now State College this year. Seeing more and more teams come into the league. What do you think the reason for this growth is? Is it the quality of hockey? Is it the convenience factor, not having to be in the PIHL and drive to Beaver Falls for ice time at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night? Or the awesome TV coverage we provide for the championship? I mean, what is the reason for the growth? I mean, why are we seeing this?
I think the league has done great things since, my first year coaching was our first year in this league. And from where it was then to where it is now is night and day. It's developing, it's getting there. I think it is a big thing of it is convenience factor, where you're playing local teams. The furthest we travel State College. You know, you got 2 or 3 trips to Altoona, Evansburg, and then you're around here the rest of the way. And it does make it a lot easier, makes it a lot more cost effective. I said, but then you get into the, you know, you got single A, double A schools going up against whatever the new classifications are, like 5 and 6A schools. So it's a pretty big, you know, discrepancy between the classifications, but the convenience factor. And this year is as balanced as I've seen this league, because there used to be, here's your 3 or 4 teams that are gonna, you know, beat up on everyone else, and you know, you have the rest of the league that's kind of fighting each other. Where now there's not a gimme game on the schedule. Every team you're going to play, you're going to have to play your best game in order to have a chance to win, and that's great to see from a league standpoint.
Do you see hockey ever moving from a club sport to something that is governed by the PIAA? Do you see it growing to the point where you fall under classifications and that's who you play?
I would like to see it eventually get to that point, but I just don't think the PIAA would ever take on. Hockey's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that goes on with hockey that doesn't happen in other sports, and I just don't think that. I mean, if they haven't gotten involved in it by now, I think the PIAA they're pretty much just washing their hands of it at this point. You're gonna have your local leagues. Like, I'd like to see it more uniform, where, you know, maybe a team from this league has a chance to go play for a state championship, or you know, move on past the Laurel Mountains championship to be able to continue to play, you know, for something bigger, something more, and keep going. And I think it could get to that point. That's been discussed before, and you know, we'll see how that goes. But the league, like I said, the league has made great strides in the 7 years I've been involved in it to get from where it was to where it is. Because where it was before there was no rules. Where now you're still getting teams that are picking up guys off, you know, that don't, hey, you don't go to high school, hey, come play for us. And that's tough to see, because when you're, like, in our position, we're trying to build our program from, here's our elementary program, trying to get kids in and building it from within. Somerset, and I learned that from Matt, from coaching at Somerset. Like, he was a firm believer in that too. Like, he's not going to take kids from other schools. He wants to build that program from the ground up, and they've done a good job with it. And I tried to model ours after that, and I think we've done a pretty nice job with it. And we have coming, you know, down the pipeline some pretty talented groups. So we're really looking forward to the end of this year and beyond, for sure. We've
discussed the PIAA and some other sports. Let's talk about Richland's golf program. You happen to be the coach of the golf team as well, and a championship golf team. They earned the district championship this year, and that was the first time for Richland. They even made it into the state playoffs, where you guys finished fourth.
Fourth, yep.
Why is it that hockey players are such good golfers? Because I got to tell you, I played baseball and lacrosse. Everything was up here.
Yep.
You put it down there, my golf swing, forget it. It's all over the place. What is it about hockey players? Because we know Marion Lemieux, fantastic golfer. Many of his cohorts in the NHL are retired NHL players, golfers. What is it about hockey players that make you a good golfer?
I mean, it's a lot of the hand-eye coordination. It's all of the same movements, you know, things like that. And we have probably half our golf team is hockey players. And you've called them, you know, our games, the Moran family. There's 4 of them. You know, they all golf too, and they all play hockey. They all golf. I said I feel like I see that, you know, them and, you know, their mom and dad more than I see my wife half the time. But yeah, this year for golf was a lot of fun. Like, we finally got over the hump. It's like we got every year second, third in districts, and Central Cambria won every year. And this year was the same thing. Like, oh, Central Cambria's gonna, and Central Cambria had a really good team. I mean, they had 3 outstanding players that could go toe to toe with anybody, and we played well at the right time and ended up advancing. Won the first District 6 title, and the starting 3, Moran was our first 3 players, and they did really well.
Well, let it never be said that we only cover hockey and football. We had a little bit of wrestling. Now we've covered golf on RMG's Trash Talk. And JJ Vasilko, we appreciate you taking the time to come in, and good luck to you and the Rams. Hopefully we'll see you in springtime.
I appreciate it. Thank you.